Well, thank you very much for investing your time to watch this video. You know, I'm dedicated to help you move on in the path of financial independence when you reach retirement. And I do it by a program called The Money Machine. And if you've ever attended one of my seminars or read my articles, you know I espouse a very simple plan. The plan is buy one property a year for 10 years, never amortize over more than 15 years, and never sell. It's a simple plan, but it's not necessarily easy. There's some challenges to it, and there's some things, some hurdles that can cause you to derail and get totally off and give up. I'm going to touch on the 5 of them, but there's one in particular I want to zero down on today. One of them is screening for tenants. You know, as a landlord, when I get a call, a tenant's giving me notice, and I know that I've got to go through the process of advertising, showing the property, perhaps when the tenant is still there working around his schedule. It's an onerous process, and it's one that I don't delegate to anybody else. It's not something I enjoy, and it's certainly not something you want to slip up on. You make a mistake here, and you've got to live with some real serious problems. So that's one thing, is screening for tenants. Another thing is landlord-tenant issues. You get a call. Might be, well, my tap is dripping, or I've got a wet spot in the wall, I don't know what's causing it, or on and on it goes, and it's one thing after another that you have to attend to. And to the degree that you get involved attending to it, that's to the degree that you're going to get fed up and want to walk away from this whole thing. So I say delegate, but it's one of the issues you have to deal with as a landlord. And then there's the eviction process. If you happen to have a bad tenant, one of them that slips through, you've made a mistake, and now you've got to evict them. Now you got to work with the Residential Tenancies Board. You got to work through all the myriad of forms, make sure you don't make a mistake anywhere, and there's a waiting game, month after month, waiting to get rid of that tenant. And nobody likes it. It's an onerous process, and it's one of the things that you're going to have to face from time to time. Then there's tax issues. I tell you, amortize over 15 years or less. So that means when you're 10 years into it with any given property, you got a 5-year amortization. You're paying a lot off on principal every single month, every single payment. All that principal you're paying off is actually, as far as the government is concerned, profit. You got to pay income tax on that profit. So you've paid down a lot off your mortgage, but you got to face the tax implications, and that's not simple. But then the 5th thing is saving for a down payment. Think back to when you bought your house that you're in now, or your first house. And we say that it's always a challenge for young people starting out, and the biggest challenge, I'm convinced, isn't qualifying for the mortgage. Biggest challenge is saving the down payment. Same thing's true when you're buying an investment property. And there's no absolute, simple, painless way about it. You got to tighten your belt, you got to work hard, you got to scrimp and save to save that down payment. One of the things that I've always done for investment properties is I pay way more income tax than is necessary based on my wage level. I'll go to whoever's deducting at source, where I'm getting my paycheck, and I'll tell them take twice as much off as what the government calls for. And that's a forced savings. Well, accountants say, well, you shouldn't do that because you're not getting interest on it. But I can't get my hands on it either. If I've got it in the bank, I'm too tempted to spend the money. So I look forward to tax time because I get a refund, and that refund largely pays a down payment on my acquisition of investment property. But it means you got to tighten your belt all through the year because you're getting that much less disposable income, that much more of it's going to the government. If you own your own house, and if you've owned it for any length of time, you've also got significant equity built up in that house, and you got the potential for what I call equity takeout. You can get some money from that house, and I would suggest you register it as a line of credit and use that line of credit for your down payment. And all the all the interest that you pay on it is tax deductible. But the third thing I'm going to just zero down on for a minute or two today is departing from the simple plan, departing from adding a property that fits your portfolio, and look for what I'll call a cash cow. You know, there are some types of properties and there are some locations of properties that generate better cash flow, better return than others. I've heard agents tell me, and I've heard the general public tell me, that they've seen an opportunity to invest. One said Brockville, one said Napanee, and they said it gives a better return than it does, for example, here in Niagara. And I know for a fact that you can invest in numerous locations throughout the United States, and a 10% cap rate isn't unusual at all. Now, I wouldn't advise you to build your whole portfolio somewhere that's miles and miles from where you live. I think that's fine if you got a 100-unit apartment building, but if you're talking about singles, duplexes, triplexes, it's very difficult if you're not close by. So it won't fit your criteria, but it may help in the short run. I had a property when I was selling real estate in Hawkesbury that I hung on to when I moved down to St. Catharines, kept it for a while. It was an outstanding property as far as the rent that it generated. I was able to shorten the amortization, and every couple of years, I was able to refinance it, and 3 times it generated me the down payment for an investment property. And you can look around for a property that'll do exactly the same thing. Maybe you'll find one down, and I've got a friend who bought 2 or 3 in Florida. And he says not only does it give him amazing return, but it also is U.S. funds, which is also handy if he wants to take a holiday or take a trip. So find a spot or the type of property. Maybe you're going to get involved in a student rental, or maybe you're going to do a rooming house. I wouldn't certainly want to build my whole portfolio on rooming houses, but it may generate you excellent return, or an Airbnb. Some of the things that can generate you better than average income, and you are going to be able to use that money to save a down payment. It'll make things simple. It'll make things quicker. As I said, it's not you're going to build your whole portfolio around it, but it may help you kickstart your down payment for your property and build your investment portfolio along the way. Thank you very much for investing your time. I look forward to talking to you again next week.